Great. All right. So today is the very first welcome meeting for Finding Freedom Through Boundaries. And I always love these first classes because I get to, for those of you who I don't know, which I've met actually all three of you. Martine, I haven't met in person yet, so I can't wait to put a face with that name. But I love that part of the first class is just kind of getting to meet everybody up close and letting you meet each other. And I think all of you know me, so I won't say too much about that. But in case Martine's watching this back, I'm obviously Kim Hallen, and I'm the owner of a equine experiential learning business in South Carolina called Unbridled. And I'm also the author of a book called Horse Wisdom, which a couple of the students in previous classes happened to read, I guess, while they were taking the class or right and said it was a good supplement. So that's just an aside. You'll probably have your hands full with the content of the class, but if you ever, it's an easy read book as well and might be a supplement to what you're learning in this class. The whole book isn't about boundaries, but it does talk about boundaries. Let's see. So this is, as I said, the introductory meeting of Finding Freedom Through Boundaries, and this is a 6-week coaching program. Are any of you feel like you won't be able to make any of the 6 meetings? You think you'll be able to come?
When's the next one?
They're going to be every week at the same time. So Tuesdays at this same time.
Oh, it's just Tuesdays. Okay.
Yep, just Tuesdays, and will be no more than 90 minutes or an hour and a half for any of them.
Okay. I should make the first 2 are going to be, I'm going to do it.
You're going to do it. All right.
But then I get less busy, so it'll be easier.
Okay. Well, we'll help you get through these first couple. Yeah. But it'd be great. You will find that the live sessions really are important for kind of incorporating and consolidating what you're learning in the class and talking through any kind of questions or challenges that you have. So hopefully all of you can make it to all 6 of those. And let's see. Yeah, I first wanted to just say again, congratulations for taking the plunge on this class and coming together. As I said, there were probably at least 5 or 6 other people who were seriously considering this and didn't do it. It's a big commitment. Not only is it a big commitment, but I think there's something scary about boundaries. And people know that they need it, but when it comes down to like, if I actually take this class, I might actually have to start shifting some patterns in my life. And that is terrifying. And I think there's a lot of people who get kind of cold feet at the last minute, and they might tell me that they just couldn't make the time or something. But I think a lot of times it's like, it just gets real, right? And we're going to have fun in this class, but we're also going to get really, I won't lie that boundary work is easy. The concepts are pretty easy. It's really good to understand the foundations and the concepts, but where it gets tricky is actually starting to implement those in your life. And that's why I like to do this as a live coaching program. So you can get a little practice with that while we're here, and we can like laugh about things, or we can practice what you're going to say, right? Or how you're going to do it, or how you're going to make the decisions. And you're not all alone trying to implement some things that might feel really uncomfortable, really out of your normal way of operating, or even if sometimes they're scary. Although we're going to talk a lot about how do you ease into it and kind of pick the low-hanging fruit first and be able to have some successes under your belt. So if there's like this huge boundary thing in your life, that may not be the first one we're going to tackle. Right? We might practice some smaller things first just to get your feet wet with it, and then you'll have more confidence in how to handle maybe the larger, more challenging ones. So I'm not going to be asking you to like tackle your biggest boundary obstacle right off the bat. All right, let's see. I kind of got off my notes here. And I do this just so that I make sure I cover everything that I really want to cover. So what I wanted to say about you 4 is that you're already separating yourselves from the pack by making this commitment and doing this class. And 6 weeks from today, you are going to be light years literally ahead of the other people in your life who maybe think they know about boundaries, maybe know that they need to do it, but aren't. Like, it's going to be amazing how different you're going to feel in 6 weeks just from doing this course. So I'm really proud of you for taking this step. And during the 6 weeks, you're going to have the benefit of being with a like-minded community. And that includes both past I was going to say past and future. Eventually, it will include future alumni, but past alumni in the Facebook group. So I like to have that Facebook group be a community that's growing of all people who've had this foundational course. So, we're all talking the same language and we can share stories and they're going to support you and you're going to be able to support them because we've all had this same like entry experience. And I think that community is going to continue to grow over time. And I'm hoping to just keep that available to you guys for however long it's helpful for everyone. So yay for being here. And a little bit about what to expect for today. I might tell you just a little bit more about myself, and then we'll go into introductions of the three of you. And then I'll talk a little bit about what to expect in the course, and then I'll open the floor for question and answer, anything that you might not be sure about. So again, I'm Kim Hallen, and the reason I offer these 6-week coaching programs periodically throughout the year is because I really believe that boundaries are like the single most essential life skill there is. And that's a really big statement to say, but I mean that. And it's one of the things that is most rarely taught by families, by schools, by employers, by anybody, right? I don't know where we're really supposed to learn this, given the way that we're brought up in the world, but it is absolutely critical life skill. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about that I've spent a lot of time observing the natural world, obviously including horses, because that's my favorite thing to observe. But I've really come to the conclusion from doing all that observing that boundaries are what have kept like the interdependent natural world that exists all around us functional and sustainable for billions of years. Like long before we got here, long before perhaps we're not here anymore, who knows? But boundaries are the groundwork that keeps interdependent life functioning. The other reason that I'm here doing this is because I've been where you are. And not exactly, of course, because I haven't walked in any of your shoes or lived your exact life experiences, but I definitely know what a struggle it is to dig your way out of unhealthy relationship patterns and coping strategies that, maybe served us well in our childhood or our younger lives but don't really serve us that well now in our adult lives with all the things that we have to manage and trying to have healthier relationships. Because I'm not saying there aren't any healthy families out there, but there's a lot of dysfunction in families out there. And it's not always, bad dysfunction. It's not intentional dysfunction. It's not always mean dysfunction, but it's just not always the healthiest patterns that we grow up in. And it's hard, just like for horses. That early learning is really hard to overcome without an intentional practice and support to do that. So I understand all of that. And it's really important, particularly, I think, for those of us who want to not only become better advocates for ourselves, but also for our horses. Boundaries are really important to be able to advocate effectively for our horses because the horse industry is a wild place sometimes, as we all probably have experienced. So this will help you with that as well. And it took me a really long time in my own personal journey before anyone opened my eyes to the fact that boundaries were at the core of so many of my problems and challenges and resentments. I did years of marriage therapy. My marriage, I'm not in that marriage anymore, but we did years of marriage therapy. And I'm going to tell you that we never talked about boundaries in all my years of marriage therapy. I'm like, how did we not talk about that? It's kind of crazy. I mean, I guess we did in some roundabout ways, but it never was like a focal area of our work. And I think it's so core to relationships. So ironically, it wasn't even a human being who opened my eyes to the truth about boundaries. It was my mare, Tempo. All right. And since then, it's been horses that have continued to teach me far more about boundaries than any human has. Now, I've learned the theory of boundaries through people. Here's Alana. I'm going to let her in. I've learned a lot about the theory of boundaries from reading books and taking courses, but the looking for someone who models healthy boundaries in the human world, I'm not saying there aren't people, but they aren't like a dime a dozen. They certainly aren't easy to come across that are consistently good at healthy boundaries. But I've found that horses are much better at modeling very clean boundary exchanges. So I'm going to be using videos of some of those exchanges throughout the course to kind of help take the emotionality out of it. And we can just like observe, what does it look like for a clean conversation or exchange around boundaries? What does that look like? And without all the stuff that we put onto it. So I thought I let her in and I'm not sure what happened. Hopefully she'll try to come back. Oh, and Alana says her laptop ran into failure, so she's restarting. Okay. They can catch some of this on recording if they need to. All right, so yeah, horses have taught me a lot about boundaries, and I want them to be able to teach you too. So I'm facilitating this course, but we're also going to be learning from the horses and from each other, and not just my horses, but your horses as well, because during the week, I want you to be thinking about how this relates to your relationship with horses as you're observing interactions between horses, any of that, what you learn from them. I want you to bring that back to our weekly discussions as well. All right, let me let Alana back in. And I know Martine was trying, so we'll see. Or I think that was her. Let's see. Now I just accepted Alana again and there she is. Okay, it's working. All right.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure I was actually letting you in because it seemed like I let you in and then it didn't appear. There we go.
My laptop kept dying on me, sorry.
That's all right. It happens. Um, yeah, so I love incorporating horse wisdom into the boundary work. I think it does make it a lot more fun and a lot more interesting to do this kind of learning. And as highly emotionally intelligent communal prey animals, like all of those pieces, I think are what make horses such masters when it comes to the boundary dance. And again, they don't have all of the cultural stuff, societal norms, expectations. They don't have all that stuff on them that we have. So they're just much cleaner in the way that they have these conversations. Or I call it the art of the boundary dance. I actually got that from Linda Kohanov. She called it that in one of her books. And I love that, the art of the boundary dance. So this course isn't just another self-help program. It's about reconnecting with the most fundamental and universal truth about the experience of being alive in a body, in a as a relational being on Earth. But what you'll be learning over the next 6 weeks, as I said, won't just help you in your human life. It's going to absolutely help you in your relationships with the horses and other animals in your life and horse people in your life. So most of all, the live part of this program is about building healthy community. So I want you guys to get to know each other and know that you're going to have each other's backs going forward. I'm really all about building herd communities, no matter where we are in the world, right? That are like-minded and that can support us through some of the more challenging things and even hold us lovingly accountable sometimes because we need that. And during this class, we're going to hold each other lovingly accountable for doing the work each week. It's not an huge amount of work. It's just about sitting down and doing it, but it should be pretty easy to complete each week. Got to make it a priority though, of course. And we're going to hold each other accountable for being honest with ourselves and one another in this. There's no judgment in any of this. I actually hope that we have challenges or failures in the course because then we can look at those and talk about them together, right? It's nothing about when it comes to boundary work, there's no perfection. It's just about increasing our skills and our capacity to work with it. All right, so let's do member introductions now. And luckily Martine did introduce herself in the Facebook group. I don't know if you both saw that, if you all saw that and her 2 horses. So I'm not quite sure why she didn't make it today, but I know she was really looking forward to the class, so I'll have to reach out to her. But let's see, let's go. I'll just go in the order you're on my screen. So Poppy, you're on the top left. Let's go there. And well, first, before you go, let me say your name, maybe a couple sentences about why you're here, where you're located, and if you want to share anything about horses in your life, you could do that quickly, and then, just what you're hoping to get out of the course.
Cool. So yeah, I'm Poppy. And I I joined this at totally the last minute. I was planning on doing it and then totally forgot about it. And then I saw your email and I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to do that thing. Not specifically because I feel like at the moment there's like some massive boundary thing going on, but I really, really enjoy your work. And I've heard you on loads of podcasts and read your book, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And yeah, it just felt like that it would just be a really good thing for me to do. It's the sort of thing that everyone goes, I wish I'd done it when I was younger. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm younger now. So
I love that. I love that.
and yeah, I think I tend to have quite a lot of people pleasing type things as well. So I'm like, that will probably be a good one for that. So yeah.
Excellent.
And then I'm in England. I am sort of near Brighton. You won't know where that is, but Alana knows where that is. And yeah, and I've got 2 horses, the absolutely wonderful Willow and Annie, who I'm sure will be very pleased that I'm here and doing this stuff, because they always are, aren't they? So yeah.
So Willow and Allie, what kind of horses and how old are they?
Willow is oh god, how old is she? She's a 14-year-old Welsh D, who I have had for 2 years now, which feels like such a long time. And she is like, oh my god, she's the one that got me started on all this. She's so wise and will not hold back on challenging you. Absolute legend. I admire her so much. And Annie, I have known for just over a month because we moved Willow to a new place and needed to get another horse. So she is an 8-year-old thoroughbred, who is, yeah, she's so lovely. She has been raced, so I thought she might have a lot more issues than she does. But she's actually so like friendly and engaging, and her and Willow just get on very, very well. So yeah.
Beautiful. All right, great. Well, thank you, Poppy. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm very glad to be here.
All right, Elaine, let's hear from you.
Hi, I'm Elaine Hayes. I live in Mooresville, North Carolina in the States. I've known Kim for a while, sort of, I don't know even how we got to meet.
In the cyber world, right?
Yeah, right. In the cyber world, like I saw your YouTube channel first, I guess. Anyway, my thing, I'm a professional trainer. I feel like I have my boundaries with horses are very, very different than my boundaries with people. And I feel like I excel. I have great boundary. I feel like I have great boundaries with horses. I have a good relationship with all my horses. I have 3. I also, have a training business. So I have, I work with a lot of different horses all the time, and I always have. And that kind of has always been what I feel really good about. And I kind of need, I totally need the work with the people. Hopefully this course will help me understand why I have these problems with people, but it's been, I'm way older than you two, by the way. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm way older than that. And it's been a very ongoing theme in my life. I think one thing, and then all of a sudden I realized, well, that was totally not what was going on with people. So I'm hoping that this course will help me sort of get at least into the ballpark of where I feel like I am with my horses. So, I mean, I can introduce my horses, but I kind of feel like just because I own them, like I have like dozens of horses. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, what we can do for you is like, as we meet each week, if there's any stories or anything from those horses that you want to share, you can bring forth whichever horse is having
okay.
something.
Yeah, that sounds good. Because I have a very crazy herd. Like I have an old retired Grand Prix horse, Oldenburg. I have a little downhill built Morgan pony that made it up to the FEI. He's injured right now. He's 14. And then I have a young 3.5-year-old, like my bright star, Nova. So they're sort of run the gamut of all sorts of different things. And all my training horses are like that too. Like I have a Pasifino, I have a Rocky Mountain spotted horse, I have warm bloods, I have thoroughbreds, I have everything. So
All kinds. Oh,
yeah, all
cool.
kinds. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think definitely this course is going to help you with your human interactions.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it is designed to, there's a lot of self-reflection and helping us understand ourselves, but you are also going to be able to apply a lot of the stuff in your mind to like other people and other relationships in terms of understanding what the dynamics might have been.
Yeah.
Or right.
Because
Okay.
and I'm super curious as to how I became this different with, because Karen Rolfe would always tell me, just treat people like horses, like you're so good with horses. Just, and I don't know why that is so hard for me, because it seems like, oh yeah, but it is not
No,
something that comes naturally.
I can tell you why it's, or I can tell you one theory about why it's hard. I know why it's hard for me is that horses are who they are. They're as honest as they can
Yeah.
be, right? Like, I mean, they may not be in touch, they may not be completely embodied, they may, not be completely present or something, but they don't really have a capacity to deceive
Yeah.
in any way. And the people don't do it necessarily intentionally to deceive.
Right.
But we
Right.
often don't even know how we feel, let alone be honest about that or express it. And we are conditioned like throughout life to hide how we're really feeling. And so it can be
Yeah.
very hard to be in relationship with people because we're not sure what we're dealing with all the time,
Or
right?
with me, I think even it's like I assume way too much. Like I read them like I read horses. And like you said, they're like lying, even though I don't mean it like they're intentionally lying, but they're not actually where I'm perceiving them to be, like the
Yeah.
horses. And then I'm just like gobsmacked when something happens and I'm like, where did that come from? Like I have no idea. So I need some tools to sort of have a better understanding with the people so we can start on the, same page. And you're so good at it, Kim. I can just model, like, I just see in your comments and I'm like, see, that's a boundary. Like so clear and nice and but I would never, I mean, I can recognize it, but I can't right now do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to take, and this is where we'll try to break it down to where it gets into simple steps each week, kind of adding onto the next week. But when we're doing these new patterns, it does take like you almost have to stop and slow down and think about it, right? And so I'll give you time and space to do some of that, knowing that that may not be how you're operating all the time. But as you start practicing, it's like laying down new mental and emotional tracks. We know horses sometimes have to do that, and it takes repetition and it takes some intentional doing. So, my main thing right now is be gentle with yourself, right? And as we're learning, and it's not going to like change everything magically in your world immediately, but it's going to absolutely give you the foundation and help you you're going to be a lot clearer on what the dynamics are and what needs to happen. And then you'll have to probably step aside and think about how to do it, right? And then do
Mm.
it. But you aren't going to be left as confused, I think, as you've been.
Awesome. I'm willing to do the work. I don't have any problem with repetition. That's my job.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm so glad you're here, Elaine. And I know you have a lot going on. I know North Carolina has a lot going
I
on.
know, it's so sad. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard. Yeah.
So thank you for being here. Um, and Alana, because I think
Hi.
Alana, you were no, Elaine was the first one to sign up, but you were pretty early too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm from England, specifically London, and I actually didn't know this course existed until you messaged me about it, which actually almost seemed like a sign
Mm.
because 3 days ago I split up from my 2-year relationship,
Oh, no.
which we actually did speak about boundaries, but we only spoke about them later on in the relationship when it was too late. And when we did speak about boundaries, they were so misaligned that we couldn't even, what's the word? Meet halfway, I guess you could say, because they were so different. I mean, one of us wanted this, other wanted, and I tried to find a North Star and it just, there was no like working with that. So I decided that it would be best to just break it off. And then there's like obviously the guilt, like, can I make it work? Did I do the right thing? Like, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it's worth finding that inner self. Like, did I make the right choice? Should my boundary have been this? Because a lot of the time I think that I don't deserve boundaries, I guess you could say that. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that's normal, but
It's
yeah.
common. It's common.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because like I tried obviously going back to the relationship saying, is my boundary worth it? And that's the part of me that's like, should I delete my boundary almost and just go like that's almost what I feel, and I should not feel like I should get rid of my boundary for this person that I don't need this person, but I need to keep telling myself I don't need this person, but like I do need this person. Like it's I don't I don't know.
No, what you're saying makes complete sense. And we are just like horses, we are social and communal beings. So
Yeah.
being alone is a scary, like, I know there's a whole American thing where we're taught to be independent and blah, blah, blah. But when it
Hmm.
comes down to it, we all want to have at least some trusted community or family like relationships in our life, just like horses.
Hmm.
So there's that really strong desire. But if they are unhealthy or toxic in some way, right? They can be worse than not having anyone, right? It's
Yeah, it was
the other
almost
side.
like I would discuss my feelings and it would be an instantaneous shutdown. You're a narcissist, you're controlling just for having to just
Mhm.
even talking about my feelings, and I got labeled. It's like didn't want to listen to me. It was just easier to throw words, and I would never I don't agree with name calling, it doesn't help anything. But yeah, this person was American too, which makes it worse because I basically disrupted my life and my schedule to fit an American time zone. So that
Uh,
alone, I'm like now having to regulate that I'm in England and not America, and it's like, oh,
uh,
I'm not doing that again.
yeah. Oh, I love that, right? So that's some clarity. Sometimes we have to, I don't want to say make mistakes, but go down certain roads before we realize that this isn't like working
Mhm.
for us. And just first of all, know you absolutely are allowed to have your own feelings, your own opinions, your own boundaries, right?
Mhm.
But I love that you two are, you and Poppy are doing this course young. I do wish that I had done something like this younger
Mhm.
because I didn't make wise choices, right? And then I got married and then I was living with resentment and I had resentment about career choice. I had resentment about so many things. And whenever we have resentment, that is a very, very strong indicator that we have either somebody has violated our boundaries or we have dishonored our own boundaries.
Mhm.
Frankly, that happens more than we think as we're the ones who aren't honoring our own boundaries. And so at that point, we can really only be resentful to ourselves and learn how to do better with that. But if we do the work,
Sorry to cut you off, but that is such a key thing that you've just pointed out. That is what I was feeling. We would always end up arguing about something that had quote unquote been fixed, but internally I never felt that it was fixed because the response I got was so, I'm just going to say it, pathetic. It was the worst response that I could have. Oh, it was my fault, but you did like, you always, like, it's deflection. And yeah, and apart from that, I'm training to be a vet physio, so.
yeah, good. Well, it's interesting because it's not until we get into like the last module that is about aggressive versus assertive and different types of aggressive, like communication that's assertive versus aggressive. And aggressive can include passive aggressive, right? And then there's passive communication. We don't really get into that until module 5, but I think that one's going to really hit home for you in terms of what you can
Yeah.
do in the relationship. And it will help you going forward to know, like, am I being gaslighted, right? Am I being, is this person using unhealthy communication styles to, and it's really, really hard to have healthy boundaries with someone who isn't having healthy, honest, assertive
Mhm.
communication. And assertive is not aggressive. Assertive is just honest and truthful, right? Not hiding who you are. So the other things are going to lead up to it, but I think that one's going to be just based on what you just said. It's going to hit home a lot for you, and it
Oh.
usually does for most people. That one.
Mhm.
So, Alana, do you have any horses of your own?
No, I used to loan, but I decided that I would just rather keep the money for a horse. when I buy one in the future, just because I'd rather dedicate myself to something rather than go partly in. And you know what I mean? I just, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, you'll get to use the videos from the horses, from my horses, and kind of you'll have some stories too. So sometimes in this course, horses from our past also come in because we remember stories of things that are relevant too. Oh,
I did a horse clinic the other day actually where we did boundaries with the horses. So we did 4 poles in a square and we had to almost keep the horses out of our square without letting them enter. So we had to work with our own body language to sort of say, hey, this is our space. And it was something that we could apply to people, like almost subtle cues to keep them out. And I struggled so bad with the subtle cues of, hey, this is my space. And I went straight to, this is my space, like PP off. And yeah, so
yeah.
I think working with the smaller cues would be really important because I think sometimes I can come across not aggressive, but like I don't know how to. I almost get into an argument before I even set that boundary. So I'll be in such a angry state because something will have wound me up to get there that I can't say it level-headedly.
Mhm. Yeah, so there's a lot of things wrapped up in that that can be. Now we'll get into a little bit as the course goes on too. Sometimes there's trauma responses that can make it hard for us to control our, responses. But also, if we're someone who has been like really severe people pleasing, kind of, I don't want to use a negative term, but almost like doormat, which is where I was when I
Mhm.
first started this journey. Like I didn't even know how I felt. I was such a people pleaser. I only wanted the people around me to be happy. I was always the one who could sacrifice, right, and be flexible and all those things. Um, but when we have a really deep pattern of that, sometimes, and we have to give ourselves this leeway, we have to find a little bit of that angry feeling to even find ourselves, right? That's not where we want to end. We want to end where we're able to notice the really subtle signals in our body that are telling us the little warning signals, right? And then when we learn how to listen to those and then honor them, we don't have to get to the more, the bigger responses. But um, there's a place and time for all of them, and also just honor your process. Like I'm glad to hear, even though that's not where you wanted to end, that you were able to just take note of where did I have to find that, like, oh, this is my
Mhm.
space, right? Like what did it take in you to even be able to be truthful in your congruent in your body and your words with that. So
Mhm.
rather than judging it right now, just noticing it, right? And notice that maybe that is a pattern that's in your life as well, right?
Yeah, I did notice it, but the thing is, I got made to feel like I shouldn't have noticed it. Like it was something that normal girls or every girl that's toxic does this. And I
Mm.
mean, I don't know everyone's opinion on having opposite gender friends. That's sort of where I was at. This person could only have female friends, and as a man, I can't handle that. I get insecure, but apparently it was my job to fix the insecurity with that. But I don't feel comfortable and I never have. So I don't think that's something that I should have to get rid of and allow. Like I don't know.
No, don't ever have to get rid of yourself.
Yeah,
That's
I did that.
never the right answer, right? You don't ever have to get rid of who you are. Yeah,
hmm
yeah. All right. So a little bit more about what to expect as the course goes on. So it's one module per week, obviously, over the next 5 weeks. And you already have access to the whole course. I'm not dripping it out like week by week, but I really encourage you to just do each week's content and stick to that week and not really jump ahead because it is going to build on each other. And I don't want a lot of it getting jumbled in your head, like so that each week we can really focus on the content for that week. And in each module, there's going to be a short introductory video that's me introducing the topic, and that's usually less than 10 minutes. So it's not a super long video. Then you're going to have some supplemental materials. Like in the first module, it is a chapter from my book, the chapter that was on boundaries. But in other modules, it might be a TEDx talk that I found that was really good, or another topic expert elaborating a little more. So you have my video, teaching videos, and then you're going to have some other content as well that provides a different perspective or a deepening of the lesson. And in each module, there's also going to be a short self-assessment questionnaire. If any of you have done the questionnaires that are on the boundary questionnaires that are on my website, the free ones, these are different than that. There might be a few of the questions that overlap, but these are specific to each module, right? So they'll do them because they're not the same ones that you did before. And I want you to know that when you respond to those, no one else in the class will see your responses to that. Those are just for you. I can look at them on the back end if I want to, but I typically don't. So that's really just for you to have a better and more complete understanding of yourself. Do you have a question, Alana?
Yes.
Yeah.
So with the questionnaire, I did the first week because I was overly eager, but the first week's content already got me like, oh my God, what do I do? So basically, it was the questionnaire. It was like, what emotions are you feeling? And I was speaking to Poppy about this yesterday. I was saying like, I cannot understand what I'm feeling. I'm either feeling 1,000 emotions or nothing. And it's like, if I'm feeling 1,000 emotions, I can't pick one because I don't even know where to begin with that. Like that alone is just stressful. Like picking out, I think, like I don't know what I'm feeling. Like, is that normal?
There's no normal or not normal, right? I think this is
Mm,
all about understanding yourself a little bit more. So that's a great observation already, is to say,
mm.
I feel lots of different feelings. So it's very hard for me to understand what I'm feeling. So I would suggest just try writing down what those lots of feelings are.
Well, that would take ages. I think I feel like the whole emotion list, like on like I was looking at like the list. I think you put up of like emotions, and every time I looked at it, I was like, I'm feeling that. I'm also feeling that, but I can't. I don't even know what most of them mean because I haven't. I feel like I haven't even felt most of them, to be honest. So I don't even know.
Well, that's an interesting comment because there's a book called Nonviolent Communication that I get some of the list of emotions from. And he says like most of us are only ever taught like what's happy, what's sad, what's
Mm,
angry, what like we have maybe 5 or 10 emotions or descriptions of emotions that we use and that are commonly used. And there's all these other more detailed, subtle descriptions. So if it's helpful for you even to just like sit, center yourself as much as you can, say the word. If it's one that you like have no idea what it is, just skip it. But see if you can even start to like distinguish what would the
mm,
subtle difference between that and that be, right? So if you can't name your own, maybe just play around with the list of emotions and introduce yourself to that there's all kinds of nuances to emotions, much more than
mhm.
you maybe thought before, right?
Yeah.
Just
Or
take away.
maybe it's like a dysregulation. Maybe I'm not regulated and I just feel one thing 1 minute and the next it just changes. Like I almost feel like that is what I do. 1 minute I'll be happy, the next like what is going on, then the next oh crap I'm sad. Like I don't know how it's not normal. I don't know. It just feels weird. Like it's not how a normal person should be thinking. Like usually people are quite stable in their moods, I feel like, but I feel like more stable than me. I don't know, but
It could be. There's also a lot of people really good at hiding, a lot of what's going on
Mm,
inside them.
true.
But I really tend to, I don't really like the words normal and abnormal. I think
Mm,
we're all individuals on various spectrums of all kinds of things. So I think the most important thing is you learning to understand yourself as well as you
mhm,
can, because you're the one that has to navigate who you are. Doesn't really matter if somebody else understands it or not. And certainly if you don't start to understand how you operate, you won't be able to help someone else understand it that you're in relationship with, if that makes sense.
mhm,
So just take away all the pressure about what's normal or not normal and bring your observations here. It's kind of like, so Elaine, we were, Poppy and Alana and I were in a class with Bonnie Mealand. It was about the art of observation and like non-judgmental observation and not projecting our feelings or thoughts on it, right? When we were observing the horses. So it's kind of like doing that for yourself. And even if when you're coming back to these classes, you just say, this is what I observed about myself when I was asked to do this exercise, right? So don't stress, just play with the content. And the overall thing about this whole course is understanding and honoring yourself better, right? And loving yourself for what you are. Like there's certain things we're all going to want to improve about ourselves, but some of the core things about ourselves we may not change, right? So it's learning to love and accept and manage ourselves. Okay. I don't know if that's helpful, but yeah, try not to get too overwhelmed with that. But I love that you looked ahead, because that way we could address this a little bit with this. Play with that list of emotions, even if you can't identify which ones you're maybe feeling right now. And even you can like look them up, look up the definitions, see if you can figure out what are the subtle differences between some of them.
I
Okay.
think I might need to.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good. I think, horses have broad emotional spectrums as well. So the more we understand, it's not just happy, angry, sad, right? There can be lots of different subtle emotions, and there can be combinations of emotions we're feeling at the same time. And our horses can too. So that will be helpful for you in being empathetic to horses as well. Yeah, so that self-assessment questionnaire is just for you. I will ask about them, and we can talk about them in each follow-up, after each week in our live session. We will talk about those. And we'll also talk about the experiential practice exercise, which is different for different, I have different kinds of activities, because I know the first one is journaling, and I know there's some people who hate journaling, but just stick with me, right? So they won't all be journaling, but the first one is a journaling one. They may be, something that I've asked you to try, or drafting comments, or, noticing what's going on with you. So different kinds of experiential activities each week. Those, well, I'll talk about that again in a minute, but those are a big part of the practice each week. So don't skip those, even if it feels like I don't know how to do this, or this is uncomfortable. And then at the end of each module, this is the really fun part, there's a short horse behavior video that just gives an example related to the lesson for that week. And we get to watch the horses exemplifying something about that week's content. In the first week, there is also a supplemental bonus activity, and it's a longer 90-minute recording of a small group discussion. When I first published my book, we did a year and a half of book clubs where I have a small group in my membership, a different membership community, and we would come online and talk about the topic. And this was the one about boundaries, and it was a really awesome, like all over the place, but really awesome conversation. And the women who participated in it agreed that I could use that recording as part of this course. Don't feel like you have to finish that 90-minute one this week if you don't have time. That's just a bonus resource for you. I do encourage you to listen to it when you have time. You can even listen to it as a podcast or something like that. But it's just a great resource. But if you don't get through that this week, I don't want you to stress about it, because most of the videos are like literally less than a minute, or a couple minutes. So they're not long. The other thing about including that other recording was just wanting you all to feel like you are part of an even larger community of people. And interestingly, it's all women. I haven't had one man in any of these classes, which is fascinating. But you are part of a larger community of women who are of all ages, all over the place, who are working on this. All right, so week 1 is all about what are boundaries and why are they important? And you may feel like you have a general understanding about that, but I just still want you to complete all the content in module 1, because I promise there's going to either be something you didn't know or didn't quite understand about boundaries, or that if nothing else, your basic understanding will be deepened with the curriculum and the content for week 1. As a summary of it, the shortest way I know how to describe why boundaries are important is that they help prevent us from being harmed physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually by others, while also mitigating the possibility that we are intentionally or unintentionally doing harm to others. So boundaries are both. Boundaries are things that protect us from the outside world, but boundaries are also what protect other people from like all the chaos and toxicity that can be going on inside us, right? That we don't want to spew out on other people. That's just going to make the relationships more complicated. So it works both ways. There's the protective boundaries, and there's what I call containment boundaries. So you're going to be learning about that this week. And as I've already said, the experiential exercises are going to be the most challenging and most uncomfortable, probably part of the week. It's by design. I want you to be able to practice getting a little bit outside of your comfort zone, or a little confused, or a little flustered, or whatever, while we're in the class. so that I can support you and we can support each other through that. That way you're more likely to continue being able to work on these things after the class because you've had some practice like working through the initial blah parts of it. And you might be tempted to skip the experiential exercises. Please don't do that. Do those, and we're going to be talking about those each week because more than anything else in the course, those exercises, and I think honestly from the feedback I've gotten, the horse behavior videos are the two things that I think help people the most to start shifting their patterns. And you can excuse my French here, but we can't actually shift our own shit if all we're doing is reading and watching and discussing. Like we got to get in the arena and play, right? So that's what the experiential exercises are all about. And as I think Alana already mentioned, the this week's experiential exercise involves exploring the warning emotions that we're feeling inside of us that may indicate that a potential boundary violation may be occurring, right? Whether it's somebody else violating a boundary or us not honoring our own boundary. We got to start by being able to feel what those emotions are that come up in us. And it might be a little bit different for each of us, the word we want to use for what those emotions are. But starting to recognize that, because that's like the key to everything. If we can't recognize within ourselves whatever our body's telling us that there's potentially a boundary violation here, we're never going to be able to know when we need to start taking action on that. So that's where it starts, is understanding what we're feeling. So that's the first experiential exercise this week. Let me stop there for a second and just see if you have any questions about what I've said so far. Makes sense? All right. Well, I want to now show you, if I can share my screen. I do want to show a little visual here. That is kind of like the process. Sorry, it always takes me a minute to remember how to share my screen. Share, there we go. All right, let me know if you see this image, like a purple image. Yes, okay, great. So this I created just to show this kind of 6 steps to what I call boundary mastery. I'm not sure we ever really become masters, but to become very, very effective with boundaries. And this course is going to focus on steps 1, 2, and 3 primarily. So step 1 is discovering boundaries, which is understanding the essence of boundaries and their role in empowering healthy living. And I mean, just not just a surface understanding, but really like an embodied understanding of why this is so important. Then step 2 is to reflect on boundaries, which is exploring your own unique relationship with boundaries and how this is impacting your life. So that will be a little bit different for each of you, although I promise there's going to be overlaps. There always is. But you really have to know that this is about understanding your unique relationship with boundaries. Then we're going to start dancing with boundaries. And this is where the experiential activities are going to come into play. It's when you start learning how to navigate the delicate dance of setting and respecting boundaries in all arenas of your life. And it is a dance, right? Boundaries are not like this thing that we just put up and that's it. The thing that horses really show us is that it's when we do it, when we're efficient at it, when we're really skilled with it, it is a dance. It's a dance of boundaries, but we always feel in control of where we are in that dance, right? And we know that we can control the dance in a loving way and not feel victimized by it or overpowered by it, or like our person we're dancing with is doing all of the leading and we're just following. That's not how it should feel. And then steps 4, support for boundaries, is practice setting boundaries effectively with guidance and support you need to succeed. Obviously, we're going to be doing some of that in this course with the experiential exercises and the 6 weeks of coaching. But it's going to require going on beyond that, right? And we'll talk about that as we get further along, whether there's other ways that I can support you going forward, but also looking at who are the resources and support systems you have in your life, including our Facebook group, but other things where you're going to be able to have support for boundaries. So as the course goes on, we're going to identify, are there 1 or 2 at least safe people in your life who might be able to be accountability partners or support systems for you. They know you're working on this, right? and they're going to help you and boost you up. Doing this work completely by yourself without anybody in your corner is really hard. So I just want you to be thinking about that going forward. We will do a little bit of this in this course, but that is a big piece that we'll be talking about you having in place as you go forward. Then step 5 is boundary independence, which is mastering the art of maintaining healthy boundaries independently, where you're able to do it on your own. You're really clear about it. You know what's healthy, what's not. You don't have to like need to ask somebody, am I crazy? What am I thinking here? You're sure, like, I get it. This is what's healthy, and I know how to do this. Oh, going back to support for boundaries too, your horses can be part of your support team for healthy boundaries. So just make a note of that. And then step 6 is when you get to become a boundary role model for others. And honestly, at the end of this class, you'll already be starting to do that because you're going to be better at it than a lot of people are. And it is really inspirational when you see people who are healthy with boundaries and you see them navigate something and you're like, wow, that person really handled that really well, right? And you're going to get to start becoming that person for other people. And you're also going to start to realize as you go through this course that there really aren't very many people modeling this out there. And so the world needs more of us. So I want us all to become boundary role models where we can experientially teach others that it's possible to do this and how to do this. So those are the 6 steps. And we're going to be definitely 1, 2, and 3 hardcore in this class and a little bit of 4. Probably not going to hit 5 and 6, immediately in this class, but that's kind of the steps. Let me unshare this if I can. Here we go. Stop share. Okay. There was something else I wanted to say here real quick. Let me look at my notes. Yeah, this was something I read just recently and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so true. So when you end the 6 weeks, you're not going to be a boundary master. And the reason is that we're going to be shifting really deeply ingrained patterns. And I read a book recently called Setting Boundaries That Stick by a woman named Julianne Taylor Shore. And she said, it will take 2 years or more for the practice you're learning, she said in that book, but it's the same as in this course, to transform your brain in a permanent way so that it feels natural and second nature to function with all of your boundaries intact. So it could take 2 years. And that's with a lot of practice, right? Intentional, consistent practice to change these patterns where they feel almost second nature to you. So be gentle with yourself that it's like, I know this stuff. Why am I that's saying when you know better, you do better. Yes, but, right? We still may not have changed the patterns for our body and our behaviors to actually automatically start doing better. We really have to do a lot of practice. So be gentle with yourself. There has been a lot of science though, that if you learn and practice in play, it happens faster. So don't beat yourself up so much. Like this is serious stuff, but it's also, let's laugh at ourselves. Let's be playful with the boundaries. Let's experiment with it, even in relationships that maybe aren't quite so emotionally intense. It's hard to be playful when the stakes feel really high in a relationship, but for some of the other relationships that maybe don't matter, they aren't quite as intense in our lives, we can play around with some of this stuff and just be like, that was interesting. When I said that, they responded like this. And right, let's be a little bit playful with it and know that there's going to be imperfections. If we're playful with it, those patterns are going to change faster. All right. That is just an hour for today, but that's what I wanted to cover today. I'm happy to stick around for a little longer and answer any questions or hear any thoughts or reflections. How are you feeling heading into the course? Let's do that. Elaine, how are you feeling?
I'm excited.
Yay. All right.
Yeah, definitely. Want to learn.
Yes. Awesome. Poppy, how are you feeling?
I'm also really looking forward to doing this. I mean, I'm kind of like really, really into all of the personal development stuff, especially when it relates to horses. That's like my favorite thing ever. But I also feel like it's going to end up showing up loads of things. Like I kind of feel like I'm like, yeah, no, I'm fine for boundaries. I don't have any problems with it. But I'm like, do you know what? I think as soon as I start looking at it, I'll probably go, oh no, I'm not. So yeah, I feel like it's gonna unearth stuff, but in a really good way. So yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, cool. Alana, what about you? How are you feeling?
Very excited. I think it's like putting a bunch of puzzle pieces together to get like a general picture of what I've been feeling or trying to say, but I just couldn't say it. It's like one of those things of like, how was I feeling and why did I feel like this? Like putting together all of the small things I could never understand before. And then I think that will help massively because if I don't know what I'm feeling, I first need to target that before I can stop those feelings from existing when it becomes problematic.
Absolutely. And just one more thought about the like words and the descriptors. I'm all for like making up words too. Like if you don't like the words that other and you want to make up your own unique word for what it is you're feeling inside,
Hmm.
make up a word, right? Like this is again how we can play, but this is a lot of this is about you being in relationship with yourself in a way
Yeah.
that feels however you want your relationship with your best friend to feel, right? Do you like having a fun and playful relationship? Do you like having a very sincere and serious relationship? This is about becoming our own best friends and honoring ourselves in a way that is sustainable over the long term for us. So everybody's relationship with themselves is a little bit different.
Are
And
we also going to be talking about like what personality attracts the other? I mean, I've heard some things where people will gravitate towards people that have a specific disorder. I think it's like narcissism and then people pleasers. They like coincide. I've heard some things here and there, but I don't know like.
what we're going to talk about I want to say it's the third module. It's the module on codependency. And
Mhm.
we will talk more about this. It's kind of this hand in glove type thing that happens if you are a people pleaser, or maybe this looks more like the people pleaser. You're a people pleaser. You are going to attract someone who likes to have their needs met,
Mhm.
right? And it feels really good at first. These relationships can feel amazing at first because I'm really good at supporting other people and empowering them and making them feel good and listening and all those things. And this person's like, yes, this person understands me. She meets my needs. Like, right? This feels great until it doesn't feel great, right? Until
Mhm.
the people pleaser starts being like, oh my God, I'm resentful. Like you're an a-hole, right? Why are you all
The
the things,
shit hits the
right?
fan.
Shit hits the fan, and everybody's tolerance for that is longer. Like I was in a married to
Mhm.
a narcissist for 17 years before I hit my limit.
Oh,
That's a really
wow.
long time. I don't recommend it.
Mhm.
But
How
if
did you do that? I couldn't last 2 years and I was
good
like,
for
bye, I
you,
can't.
good for you. Yeah. So it just tells you how deep my pattern was, right?
Yeah,
And
that
then there's
is,
also the
yeah.
cultural stuff, as I had made a wedding vow and I really
Mm,
in that, and he had mental health issues, and I was afraid he was going to commit suicide. Like there were so many
mm.
layers to it, right?
That
But
is exactly similar to mine with the suicide thing. I couldn't leave as well because of the threats, like, oh, I'm gonna do this, oh, I'm not gonna be able to, blah, blah, blah. And it almost, whenever I tried to leave, there was always an excuse as to why I couldn't leave. And then it got to the point where he now has a job. I almost feel like I was being used while
yep,
he was at a low place. And now that he's got a job and he's got all this, I basically got put aside because I still have the time, but then somehow he doesn't. I'm in a full-time degree so I was just like, I'm not working my ass off for this when this is all I'm getting. So I was
yes,
like, "Okay."
yes. So I'm proud of you for it only taking two. Like you might feel like, why did it take me 2 years? Well, remember, it took me
Mhm.
right. So it's all a spectrum. But yes, how we behave will determine who we attract into our life. There is like a magnet attraction there. Even after my divorce, I worked on some of this stuff. I still was attracting a lot of narcissistic energy into my life.
I
Not
attract borderline personality disorder. All of my partners have had borderline, and that's one of the hardest conditions I have ever dealt with. They're now on my blacklist because I just can't do it. Like both of them work. I can't even imagine what made them think that that was okay to put onto me. Like the problems they had. I was like, I can't date you guys anymore. Like this category of brain problems, I just can't. It doesn't work for me. So,
Well, the good
yeah,
news is what happens when we've been in relationships with people who are really extreme is
Mhm.
we can spot them a mile away. Like once we
Mm-hmm.
know and we've been in a relationship with that, so then it becomes about our responsibility not to engage with that behavior. And that
Mm-hmm.
sounds easy, but it's actually really hard because that there's a pattern there. But it's good that you recognize that pattern and you know it. So I think you can approach this course also as like finding the security and the clarity,
Mm-hmm.
not question yourself or not question, is that what I'm dealing with? But to go like, no, I know what that is, right? And that is unhealthy
Yeah.
energy. And I don't want to welcome that. I don't have to be mean or hostile, but the earlier that we can recognize that and put the boundary up, the easier it
Mm-hmm.
is. Because once you start getting into relationship, then it gets stickier, right?
Yeah, I noticed the one thing that they gave was the need to feel wanted. Like that was what they brought to me. I
Yes.
felt wanted initially and like, oh, this person actually loves me. And like it wasn't, I think there was like a thing that says after 11 months their mask falls off or something. And that was how they were. And yeah,
Yeah. One of the big indicators too is like anybody who really is giving off a vibe that they need you and they can't make it without you.
yeah,
It's
bye-bye.
not a good vibe, right? We want people in our lives who want to be in relationship with us, but are okay on their own,
Mm-hmm.
are okay stand most of the time. Like everybody has points where we need somebody. Like I don't mean that someone has to be perfect all the time, but if it's someone who just can't seem to survive or be happy or be content without you or solve any of their own problems, like
Mm-hmm.
this is a big warning flag, right? And we
Yeah, I had to solve everything. I made a CV for this person for a job. I was searching for jobs with this person. I basically did everything alongside my full-time degree. I made a CV. I bought a BPD workbook to get him help. I bought everything and still wasn't enough. I got told that I put no effort into the relationship and
that's just gaslighting, right?
mm,
So it's good you've had that experience. And Elaine, I see you got to run. Okay. She's going to dive into the course tonight. And later, I'd like to get into, we'll see if Elaine has any stories with this, because all of these dynamics that you are talking about, Alana, can get even more complicated when it's like a business relationship and when
mm.
clients who you need the money to survive, right? But you're getting into these dynamics with a client relationship,
Oh yeah, I'm dreading that.
like even more complicated. And I bet, given that Elaine works with a lot of different horses and people, she might have, some experience with that. But again, the better that you can get at managing some of this now, right? It's the same lessons. It's just sometimes the stakes feel higher when we're turning down money too, but we have to learn to be really a
Mm-hmm.
sane business owner. You want to be able to cultivate a client population that are somewhat healthy people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it can make you crazy in your business as well. So it's personal life, it's work life, it's business, it's family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Areas. So I'm
It's so
so
complicated, like piecing everything
Mhm.
together.
It's one of those things where I think it feels really complicated. Once you kind of get on the other side of it, it's actually quite simple, but it's not easy.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
simple, but it's hard. And it's simple if you can enter into relationships with this clarity and set effective boundaries like from the beginning. It's a lot harder and it is a lot more complicated when you're in established relationships, and this can be family too. Like we don't choose those relationships, but we're in them for life. Well,
Mm-hmm.
unless we actually cut those ties. If there are existing relationships that have really messy dynamics, that is a lot harder to sort through. And
Mm-hmm.
and as you got to already without, in doing this course, there are some of those relationships where the only thing we can do is end them because the other person isn't wanting to learn how to be healthy.
Mm-hmm. And it
Doesn't
was like for me, like what is a healthy boundary? Like to me, I don't know if the opposite gender friends is a toxic boundary to have. I mean, he made it seem like I was toxic for having that boundary and not being comfortable with opposite gender. But in my opinion, why do you need to have gratification from someone of the opposite sex? I don't understand that.
Well, I mean,
I don't understand it, and I said multiple times like I don't get it, and I don't know.
I don't know that there's a right or wrong there.
I
Again,
don't think so either, but I think if it's one of those that in future I have to make that clear, we both have to make that clear in the beginning.
absolutely. Yes, that is very important for, especially for intimate relationships, that you're on the same page with the like most important things, like the
Which
things
is
that are most
friendship, and
important to
yeah.
me that make me feel safe in a relationship or allow me to feel um, healthy and vulnerable and at peace in a relationship. These are the boundaries I have. Now, there also can be that boundaries change over time or in our lives. So let's know too that like at this stage of your life, that is your boundary, and anyone you're in relationship with needs to be on the same page with that
Mhm.
boundary, right? That doesn't mean 20 years from now, you might have a different feeling about that. And if it's the
Mhm.
same relationship, that's when you're like, if boundaries change, communication is really important along the way, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, no, that's very, very, very important to be on the same page with that.
Yeah, that was the mistake.
Yeah. Well, so you learn, right?
Mhm.
And values and value alignment in intimate relationships is very important. You can have lots of differences, right? But
Yeah.
on core values, there's some that need to be very in alignment for it to work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
As you're when you're in the course, I think it explained this in the intro part. The comment section is public. You'll also be able to see it's the same shell of a course. So even the students who've been through it already, you will see past student comments, which I think is kind of fun, right? It
That
explains.
is really cool. I saw that when I was doing it. I was like, that is neat.
Yeah, so you'll see what some of the past students said when they were in the course, right? And they still have access to the course. Actually, you have lifetime access to it. So if they wanted to log in and see comments that you guys are putting in, they could. So just so you know, the comments thread is public within the cohort that has enrolled in the course, which I think is, there were some self-paced students too. So I don't know, there might be between 20 and 30 people that have access to the course shell right now, but you are the only ones that are actively probably putting in comments at this point. But you do benefit from the comments from past students. There's also some section, a section in there for notes or something. That's perfectly you. I can't even see that. So if you want to use that part, that's personal notes. That's just only when you log in with your ID do you see those. And then there's the Facebook group too. So if there's something that you want to share with the larger group, feel free to do that. It hasn't been a super active group. I'm hoping it gets even more active, but even if it's just a boundary meme that you see that's really that you'd like to share with the others, or a horse story or anything. You also have that space community, but again, that is a little bit larger community. It's not any of the self-paced students, it's only the students who've been through like the live coaching part of this course are in that Facebook group. And then when we have these meetings, it's just the four of you who are in this cohort and nobody else will see those. So that's just understanding the different layers of community there. All right, excellent. Well, I will see you in the classroom and I'm so excited, and I'm excited for Martine to be here next time. So I'll touch base with her and find out, whether it was a technical difficulty or what happened today, but I'll make sure she gets this recording.
That was cool. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Have a great evening, you guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.